Hello, everyone, and welcome to Back to School Safety September. Today, we are going to be talking about how to secure your school without going broke. Now, I've done full-on 90-minute seminars on this, and this is just going to be an overview, but it'll be, I think, extremely effective for some of you who are starting this process, about to start this process, or, the process of securing your campus, or are at a point where you may have some buyer's remorse. So, first thing you need to understand is that security is a never-ending, hungry beast. It'll take every dollar you throw at it, and it'll consume everything you got, okay, if you let it. That's why you need to do this strategically and with some discernment. You got to be really careful when you're dealing with vendors, okay? Vendors typically want to sell you stuff. They want to sell you the newest gadget. They want to sell you what they have and what not what someone else has. That's why I often recommend working with a consultant to come up with, a plan by doing a security site assessment. One of the first things you need to do if you're starting this process, you got to realize what you are. Are you a brand new school starting up in a space you're renting that you might not even be in next year because you're being successful, and every dollar matters? Are you a medium school where you're in a long-term situation, you've had some success, you're doing well, and now you've had some close calls, or God is working on you right now to secure, to secure his flock, and it's time. So you're looking at it, you're like, okay, we have some funding, or we're getting ready to do a drive, a security fundraising for this initiative, and and that's a great thing. Or you're an established school who is succeeding, budget isn't an issue, you've been around for a decade or more, and you want to do this long term, and you can afford to strategize it long term. When you're in the beginning and you're in that first book, you just got to pick the lowest hanging fruit you got. You got to make every dollar count, and I understand that. Okay, so let's talk about what you shouldn't do, and then we'll talk about what you should do. Okay, the first thing that you should do is, again, like I said, figure out which batch you're in there, because that's going to set how much money you have to spend. Is your total security budget 10 grand or under? Okay, that's very modest. Okay, is it between $10,000 and $30,000, or is it, are you looking long term? You have the funding. You want to do things like a perimeter fence and other things, and your budget is much larger than that. So again, it really depends on where you are in your growth cycle as a company or as a school / organization. So the first thing that many schools do is a mistake is they try to fix this with a gadget. And the first gadget they go to is security film. I see this, which is like a window tint. Okay. And I see this with churches. I see this with businesses. They're all really proud of what they did, and they do this. Now, one, I just want to say my approach to security is in all the above. Should you do security film? Absolutely. But that's more of an icing on the cake piece for me. There are many foundational things you should do before that. And just understand that no film has kept me out of it for longer than 7 seconds. Now, 7 seconds is a lot better than no seconds, right? Which is what happened, say, at Sandy Hook. One shot, it drops. A lot of people make the mistake to thinking that the film is bulletproof. Film is not bulletproof, and the stuff that is bulletproof is about that thick. Okay. And you can't afford that. That stuff is really expensive. It's really heavy and requires the proper framing to go around it. Okay. That's not your average window or your average door. Now, again, I always recommend security film as part of the icing on the cake. Okay. But it's not the foundational stuff. Okay. It can be a part of some of your foundational work, like, hey, let's do your main entrances first, and then we'll look at your first floor. Okay. But that stuff can be really expensive and it's not nearly as effective as the vendors want you to believe. The next thing I often encounter with organizations who want to do this, they want to go out and they want to get all these high-speed cameras. Okay. They go and they invest in a ton of cameras and and they get eyes everywhere, but they're not paying anyone to watch those cameras. So those cameras are really good during the investigation that can tell you who died where and what happened where. Now, those security cameras are great for lawsuits for did someone touch, someone inappropriately or during crime investigations and preventing some types of crime. But in an active shooter scenario, unless the cameras are monitored by a security professional who's going to be able to react with certainty to that situation, they're really almost a waste of money. Okay, now if you're going to do it, again, we'll talk in scale. Do your entrances first. Now, should you be able to see your whole campus? Yes, you can grow to that. But particularly the person who's buzzing people and buzzing out, I would, if I don't have a security professional doing it, I would empower the person who is letting people into the campus and out of the campus the ability to protect themselves and deny entry of said person coming in, which if it's a solid door, great. If it's not, then you might want to invest in some of that security film. Will it create a bulletproof environment? No, but it'll delay the attacker from gaining entry, and it will allow that person in the front to hit your lockdown, alert your campus and get to cover and be able to barricade effectively. All right. The other thing that a lot of people want to do, and this broke my heart, is I was touring a facility in Richmond who didn't end up hiring us, probably because I pointed this out. But it was a religious school up there. And I walked through the building and they were very proud of their one-button lockdown system. They had spent well over 6 figures to make sure that they could lock down their school by pushing one button. And I walked up and I hit all the glass and all the doors in the entryway, and it was all thin glass. None of it filmed. And I said, you bought yourself 2 to 3 seconds tops. Okay. Now they were very embarrassed. They had just wasted over $100,000 on this one button lockdown system. But they were very proud of it. They just told all their parents that was just the greatest. And it did nothing because they bought from a vendor. They didn't buy from a security. They didn't talk to a security consultant first to help them prioritize their money. Is that a great tool to have? Absolutely, if you have the right facility. It was useless for them. Okay. There are some facilities where that would be epic to have. And those would be your 1950s style bomb shelter, high schools that were literally built to be bomb shelters that I can turn into a fortress in a matter of seconds, right? So again, the one button lockdown systems, here's the other thing with those one button lockdown system. As soon as they pull the fire alarm, all those doors unlock. So again, counting on a gadget to save you is not a wise thing. Okay. The next thing is a lot of people they have some success and they're building their campus, and dollars are at a premium when you're building a new facility. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here. And far too often I am brought in after the building is built and all the plans are made and the architects have done their work. And I come in there and there is a ton of things that I could have recommended to them in the planning stage that would have saved those schools a ton of money. Okay. One, you never put on a first floor building, you never put windows on all 4 sides of your building, because then you can't have a safe corner to barricade and have your kids be in a safe corner for your ambush team. Right. So that means less windows. Less windows means less money. Right. Again, working with your security professional, helping him choose your doors. It's easier to choose the right door to help you barricade and keep someone out than waste the money on the doors and have to replace them because they're useless. Okay. Also recommending windows and all these other things. So if you're going to build a campus, work with a security consultant who is going to be able to advise your architect on things that are going to save you money in the long term. So you're not having to go and undo or counter a bunch of mistakes you made in the building phase. The next thing a lot of people do, and this will be the last things on what they do, is they hire an armed guard and they base their whole plan around one person. And that does not work. Okay. Do I recommend that everyone have an armed guard? Absolutely. Can you base the whole plan on them? Absolutely not. Because what happens if they're sick? What happens if they're injured? What happens if the person knows that they're the security guard and they ask this very helpful, nice, kind person, because again, we're talking mainly to Christian schools here, can you help me with this? And then they're the first casualty, and now you have no plan because Bob was your only plan. I just named him Bob, obviously. So, so again, we got to train everybody in what to do and don't create that bottleneck and that false sense of security of having one armed guard. The other thing is, I've seen brave men fail time and time again. We've seen entire police departments refuse to go into an active shooter. Okay. In Uvalde, we saw officers go get their own kids out and leave other kids to die. In Parkland, we saw security officers refuse to go in and run the other way, school resource officer. So again, you don't know what you got until it happens, and whether you have a brave person or not brave person. And mandating bravery is a hard thing to do. Should they? Absolutely. But again, not everyone is what they appear to be. All right. So how do we counter that? Well, there's a lot of great things you can do that are cost effective. Okay. And first one is training. You should train at a minimum your entire staff, teachers, receptionists, principals, janitors. Everyone should be trained on what to do with an active shooter, which includes all aspects of run, hide, fight. Okay. They need to know how to fight. You can't only train run and hide. If you only train run and hide, you're the first place where they open fire, everyone's going to die there. Okay. Because the only thing that stops them in the immediate space is someone resisting. So, if everyone's running and hiding, they're going to keep killing until someone resists. Okay. So you have to know how to fight, and people need to know how to fight. Okay. And that's obviously, those of you who've been through our training know that that's a big part of what we do. All right. The other thing is we got to look at our, creating as much of an insulation with policy and signage as we can. Signage, policy, we'll start with policy first. Policy is phenomenal. You can say where people are allowed to go, where they're not allowed to go, setting the standard on the type of people that can go on your campus. Letting people know that you do not allow people on your campus who are not students. A lot of schools want to play nice with the neighborhood, and they let anyone on their campus, domestic abusers, sex offenders that they don't know about, et cetera, and they're all playing on your front lawn or your recreation area without you knowing who they are and what risks they are to your students. Okay, so you want to go into a complete review of your EAP, your weapons policy, what it is, your domestic violence policy, your missing children policy, going through and looking at all these things and updating your EOP, your emergency operations plan or emergency action plan, which is an OSHA required document, which that playbook should be dialed tight all the way down to the SOP. Those of our clients who we've written them for, they know exactly what to do. Anyone who picks up that binder knows exactly what to do for everything from a hurricane to an active shooter to a missing kid to a domestic violence, incident at the pickup drop off. Okay. They all know what to do. Communications is the next one. Mass text notification systems are relatively cheap. Every school should have a mass text notification system. You should not be relying on your intercom. Because if they come in the front door or wherever your intercom is, no one's going to be there doing your intercom. Okay. Now, I know there can be some redundancy in intercom and people can do that over places. No one's going to be doing that. They're all going to be hiding, but they're all going to have their phone with them. Mass text notification is the gold standard for good communications with them. Now, you can also do radios like this. This is a Midland thing that we use on our farm. I've got a 44-acre farm here, and my wife and kids, when they leave, they grab a radio, and I have comms with them all over there. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is a lot of people overwork their comm system. Every time a kid gets a boo-boo or needs to go to the nurse or someone spills something, there's all this loud noise on the comm system. If the comm system is an emergency comm system, it's only used for that. And if people hear sound coming over that, they need to drop what they're doing and listen to it, because that means something dangerous is going on and that you should pay attention. Okay, so that means that one radio station that's on in all the classrooms is the emergency radio station, and you can use that. Okay, but I still recommend mass redundancy, text notification systems, and comms. Last thing we need to do is need to create barricadable spaces. And if you want to be able to hide, which is what everybody wants to be able to do, run and hide and not fight, then you need to have rooms that you can shelter in place in. And by doing that, you need to barricade them. Well, all these big glass rooms and big glass doors and things with windows and everything on the first floor that somebody can walk up and put a gun through a window and shoot in, those don't work. Okay. So the only way they work is if you start getting very specific furniture or items. Now, I am a big fan of large, rigid, non-compressible items like tables. Now, when I go and I do a lot of, Christian schools, I look at, their desks, and they have little kid desks, little individual kid desks. And those are pretty useless for barricading. I mean, you can do some things with them, but I'd much rather see one big long table, because I can take that long table and flip it up against a window. And now a wall that had a window, I can use that and barricade that. And now I have a safe corner. If I can barricade a couple windows there, that I can put kids in that they can't see through, they can't shoot through. So that's something that you want to do with barricadable spaces. Ballistic blankets are another answer. They have bulletproof blankets out there that are various sizes. They're pricey, but you can turn any place into a bathroom or a copy room or something small into a bulletproof room per se. Bullet resistant room. I don't want to say proof. For the people that are in there, but underneath that blanket. Okay, you got to make sure that the bad guys can't get in, or else they're just going to lift the blanket off and then do horrible things. So again, it's stopping them from gaining entry. So some other things that you can do in barricadable spaces is, we talked about the film, but I like steel shutters that lock down into the basement that they can't see through and get through. Now, at a minimum, whether you have safety treated glass or the security glass or the steel shutters, everyone should have blinds that you can close to deny entry, so you can see, so the attacker can't see into the room. One thing you don't want them to be able to do is to aim at what they want to shoot. Okay. Now, if it's not security filmed and it doesn't have a blank, a steel grate on it, they can smash it and clear it out. But at least then you're going to have some time to get up on that wall and possibly grab that weapon and take it from them and do one of our ambush techniques that we teach kids' lives. So that's all we have for you today. God bless you. And I'll see you.